Hello and welcome to this Facebook Live. I know it's been a while since I have been on here, but I've been seeing this pattern and the same question being asked in a couple of my forums and a lot in my private sessions with my clients who keep asking me, how do we heal from emotional trauma when we still struggle with the effects of trauma, even when most of the guilt is gone? So that's what I want to speak to today. And first, I just want to remind you, if you're new to my channel or you're new to trauma hacking, I want to first of all just kind of recap on where trauma comes from, and also to invite you, if you want to go deeper and you want more personal support in getting to the root cause of the emotional blocks that are holding you back from success, from finding love, from living an abundant life, that you know where to find me. All you have to do is just click on the button below and book a Confusion to Clarity free discovery session with me now, so that we can really get you in a place of personal empowerment, so that you move into 2020 really inspired and really aligned and in congruence with your true nature. And when you do, I'll help you to turn your nervous system into your ally, so that you can claim your power and live with purpose, and most importantly, pay it forward. Because if you know me or a little bit about my work right now, you know that if you're living in survival, you cannot create when you're in survival mode. And we need to really get to a place where you can create your own safety and co-regulate with other people in a way that moves you forward and brings more joy and fulfillment into your life. So I hope that you enjoyed today's dose of Body Mind Medicine. And one favor that I have for you is this: that if you love this sort of trauma-informed approach to healing, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel or join me in spreading the word by subscribing to my newsletter over at accessyourtruenature.com. And if you feel called, please feel free to leave a comment, because you really matter, and you don't know who you may touch by your comments or your questions. And it just helps me spread the word and helps other people to discover my work. And the beautiful part is that we co-regulate safely together. And if there's anything in this session or any other sessions that really strike you as an aha moment, shoot me a mail at sj@sarahjanefarrell.com and just tell me which episode it was that resonated with you, so that I can really know what your aha moments are. And of course, I love hearing that these sort of doses of Body Mind Medicine are supporting you on your journey. So let's get into it. So how do you trust that you are and always have been enough? And know that, you know, it's never when you've had a symptom focus, that you've probably tried a lot of things already, but you're going to carry on coping and not get better if you're not trying, if you are trying to fix things or band-aid things which are not broken in the first place. And I don't want you to cope better. I want you to be your own medicine and thrive and heal yourself, because nobody else can do that for you. And I'm not trying to diminish how far you've come either. I'm here to help you to realize that there's another level to healing. There always is. And this is about not becoming more. You can't learn something new to truly believe that you're enough viscerally, you know, in your bones. It's always about identifying the root cause and healing that, because guess what? When you do that, that's how it goes. So to get to the question that keeps coming up, why do we still struggle with the effects of trauma, even when most of the guilt and the shame and the blame and the regret has sort of gone? It's left your body. Well, the answer, or my insight into this after working with people for the last 18 years, is what we call cognitive dissonance. And I have done a video on that before. I'll post the link below this later on. But let's just define trauma. because there's so many versions of what trauma really is. And if we just start with Freud, he talks about shock and trauma as any event from the outside that disrupts the psyche of the individual. And of course, that's seriously going to affect your attachment relationships and impair proper function of the stress response, which makes it much more reactive and sensitive, especially if you're a highly sensitive person or an empath. You know how much it affects your sense of connection to others, or your disconnection, or your isolation, and your feeling of loneliness, like you're in this on your own. And I don't know why, but my computer keeps pinging, and I'm not sure how to stop that. So forgive me for the constant pinging as another way to really just get this whole trigger response going. So that's what you call a pattern interrupt. But anyway, Bessel van der Kolk, who has done incredible work with the polyvagal theory, he says that trauma is an illness of not being alive in the present moment. And I really love that, because you cannot be present to create your future if you're living in the past or the historical culture of what's happened to you, and you're still in the storytelling of that from a victim mode. And Gabor Mate, another one of my incredible mentors, says that trauma is what happens inside of you that creates a loss of our identity, of oneself in the present moment. So trauma has many, many faces. It's developmental, it's interpersonal, it's sexual, it's childhood, it's disaster, it's environmental, it's abuse, and oftentimes it's medical trauma, like having your tonsils out and not knowing what's going to happen to you when you're a child, and all of a sudden you're lucid, and the next minute you've been knocked out and you wake up with a really, really sore throat. Perhaps when you were in the middle of trying to run away from the people that were holding you down on the bed to euthanize you. So it has so many, many faces. And all you need to know is what happens to us after the event, after the shock and trauma, after those sort of vibrational reality shock and trauma systems have changed our biology and our body chemistry. It all depends on when it happened and who did it to us and what happens after the trauma. The result is always an inability to function in a healthy way. And I really like that sort of definition of it, that trauma is any kind of experience of threat or disconnection or isolation or immobilization that results in a physical or mental or emotional injury. It's all dysregulation of being in our optimal state of health and wellness. And of course, happiness as well. It affects us in the body, in the mind, in the heart, in the brain, in the spirit, and in our relationship to how we're interacting with other people. We cannot create in a vacuum, and we also can't get well on our own. We need support to do this because we're traumatized in relationship. So we have to heal through relationship. And I know I say that all the time, you have to feel in order to heal. So does it make sense that if your body and your brain and your heart or your spirit is not optimized because of trauma, that it's going to create some kind of cognitive dissonance? So what is traumatic for someone who had secure attachment at birth and perhaps just had one traumatic event is going to look very different from somebody else who didn't have that, which is why oftentimes in that example that I give of two people in the exact same collision or car accident, one person can walk away and be absolutely fine and carry on with their life, and the other person gets severely impaired. They cannot be present after that event. So what is cognitive dissonance? Well, my insight into it is that it's a state of being that where our beliefs, our attitudes, our beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions about ourselves, our identity, and in the situation that we're explaining or storytelling in are not in alignment in how we're acting out or showing up in our lives. So if you kind of think that we're a good and thoughtful person, but then we find ourselves trying to harm someone, or just having feelings of being jealous or envious or angry because somebody has something that you want, that's what I would call cognitive dissonance, right? It's an incongruence on what we believe ourselves to be and how we judge ourselves as not being a good or kind person. And this can also occur in a lot of abusive relationships, when we believe we're good and kind, but someone else keeps telling us the opposite, and uses gaslighting techniques. And I speak about that in the triggers and the ways that we can identify whether we have suffered from narcissistic abuse that makes us very codependent on the perpetrator later on in life, because we don't know what's true from our truth, because it's so subtle in the way that it shows up, that we end up believing, because we don't remember things clearly because of all the subtleties and the innuendos of gaslighting, that we actually are terrible and hurtful. We begin to believe the persecutor, or the person that is the narcissist, that's manipulating our reality to get what they want from us. So I'm sure that you can see that it can be very, very detrimental to our development and our growth, because we don't know what's the truth and who we really are. And it can lead us to questioning any and everything that we do or think going forward in our lives. And it's really crazy making. And I know a lot of you can relate to this because we've spoken about this before. But to get very, specific in questioning around trauma and why our feelings can remain, even when most or all of the guilt is gone. Often what I find is that the guilt is misplaced because we're told that we are to blame, or that we could have done something to stop it. And I know I certainly was in that place when we had an armed robbery in my house, and my husband said it was my fault because I'd left the garage door open and invited these people in. And I know I played that story over and over in my head in nightmares for months, until I got to actually move the anger through me and know that I did the best thing possible to make sure that my family was kept safe in that moment. So that fight or flight or flee or freeze, if we freeze, which is often the case when we're children or we're in a particular situation where our lives are threatened, like that armed robbery for me, then we can feel like we should have done more to fight back or stop it. And I have been there, and I can totally relate to a lot of my clients who share that they went back over to their abuser's house even after the abuse had started, and that makes them feel responsible. Or if it's sexual abuse, we may even have had an orgasm. And even though that is a physiological response, that doesn't equal consent. So I want you to really, really hear that and stop beating yourself up and judging you if those are the kind of monkey mind thoughts that are keeping you stuck from living into your present moment. And to just know that whatever the situation, we can feel guilt afterwards, and that guilt can lead us to many various feelings and coping skills, right? What I call protective and defensive patterns. They were there to keep you alive in the moment. They become coping mechanisms when we're using them, when we don't need them anymore. And this is where we have to do the work at the level of the nervous system. So if time passes and we're able to let go of that guilt, or maybe even place it onto the correct person or situation, the feelings and even other experiences that we have had as a result that have piled up on top of it, letting go of one emotion like guilt or anger, it doesn't negate or get rid of any of the other thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So if that makes sense, just give me a hell yes in the comments below, because I believe that until we can process the trauma completely so that it doesn't have any emotional charge, and I hope you heard that, any emotional charge, it's still going to bother us. It's still going to trigger in the most unlikely situations until we get to that root cause of resolution and really fully integrate that in the body, because eventually if we don't, the body will say no. And this is where we show up with chronic disease and emotional and mental disorders like anxiety and depression that stop us from living our best lives. And that's why working slowly but surely on all those things that are coming up for you, and to learn to be with those uncomfortable feelings through orienting. I spoke about orienting yourself to the room when you're triggered, to know that you are safe, that you create your own safety, and that is just a memory, an implicit memory that's ready for you to work with it. Nothing can change. And that's when you actually start to make things feel better and you start healing a lot faster. So just know guilt is simply one feeling that is associated with trauma, and it's not the only one. You know, we hear about this in survivor's guilt as well. But that's also why understanding your attachment style, the cornerstones of my work are learning to understand your attachment style, knowing how high your ACE score is. So if you haven't taken the ACE test, go over to my website and take the ACE test now, because it's in educating yourself and being able to identify your survival or coping behaviors that you adopted as a child kept you safe then, and being able to work with them is pivotal to getting back into optimal health and healing. And through those behaviors, then we can then start to identify the root emotional causes. Then we can take that and realize, yes, I deleted, I distorted, I generalized, I dissociated. I made a lot of things up on threat and survival response. And yes, maybe I was hypervigilant and I was always on the go in order to distract myself from having to have actually sit with those uncomfortable feelings. Or maybe I was consistently isolating and pulling back and guarding my heart. And now we've got to build some emotional resilience, which means I have to face something that I was scared of again. But this time, and I prefer to say the and rather than the but, this time I'm going to do it differently. Can you relate? Am I making sense? To know that those patterns are intimate and they're sacred to knowing yourself. So how do you heal from emotional trauma? Well, and some of you might not like this, you have to recreate it and choose a different possibility. It's very experiential in the process. It's very gentle when you're held in the safety and support of the spaces that I hold in my private sessions and in my closed groups, which means that it's safe enough for you to have that trigger again in that relationship. But this time, because you're in safety and you're connected, you can self-regulate through the co-regulation of having someone hold sacred, safe space for you and choose differently. And it means that something's going to go wrong in your love life or in your family or in your business. It's part of being human, but this time you're going to handle it differently. And it's through consistently doing it differently, right? It's a taking aligned action that creates that healing. And that's how you build emotional resilience. And then guess what? New level, new devil. Because when you're in the next level and you have a greater space of resiliency, your body can bring more of that unresolved trauma up to the surface, because you have the tools and the safety and connection to be able to process and integrate it. So new problems, there are always going to be problems. They're always going to have stress. Unfortunately, it never ends. But I can help train your nervous system to become your ally. And that's what sustained high performance is about. Because sustained high performance is really sustained resilience, right? It's having the capacity online to dare bravely, to be courageous, even though you may be afraid. And why we as empaths and HSPs, we really, really need support with that. You cannot do it alone. And when people think of high performance, thinking about really, really crushing it or getting to the next level of success, there's always a turning point. And it's when you get to that level where you think, okay, I'm at the top of my game. This is where a lot of people fall back down, whether that's in relationships or with your business or your clients or your family or your sport or whatever it is that you're wanting more success in, that you become apathetic in a way. And you go, okay, well, I'm there, so I don't need to practice again, which of course is not what you do. What you need to do is practice more. And athletes really understand this. And we have to start to understand that too, is that it's about a consistent level of practice and engagement in every relationship, whether that is the game of life, of your, getting your body healthier, or your mind, or your money, or your love, or whatever the name of the game is for you. That's the model of functional health and living right there. How we do anything is how we do everything. I say that all the time. And I get a little antsy when I hear a lot actually, of personal development coaches and speakers who are only dealing or coaching on those two top levels of behaviors and thoughts. It used to really annoy me when they would say, oh, you know what, just change your thoughts and your story, change your behavior, just do the contrary action. And you're like, oh, okay, so you want to stop drinking? Just stop drinking. Well, how does that work? You just change the behavior. How's that working for a lot of people out there doing the 12 steps of AA? It's just not sustainable. And you can't maintain that. So yes, your thoughts create your life, and that is true. It's just not complete. And I think that we've come a long way from Jesus to the Buddhist monks and personal development. We've evolved a lot with Freud to the modern day people like Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and Tony Robbins and all these amazing people that are coming through right now. But the focus has always been on the mindset, which is important. But what we're learning now, because we have different tools, is that mindset is produced as a chemical response to the emotions of your body. So it's more about association with how you're feeling. So what we do is we say, okay, here's the behavior and here's the story you told yourself. So how are you feeling? And the emotional part, the emotional layer is the hardest layer to get underneath, because it's like you're every part of your nervous system is going, no. I'm not going to do that emotion. I don't want to feel that thing. And so we distract ourselves by changing the subject, or deciding to watch a couple of Netflix shows before we get to the thing, or going to play with colors on our website. And I found myself doing that earlier today, rather than actually doing what I knew I needed to do. Or we go to another seminar for all you seminar junkies out there. And then you kind of hit this low when you come off the high of being there, because you're alone again and you're sitting with your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and not dealing with it on the root cause level of your nervous system. So, gosh, I'm not making these top two layers wrong. And it's so interesting. The sirens went by right then. But, change your thoughts, change your life is accurate. But the way that you truly, truly change your thoughts is by changing your emotional state, because the thing is, your thoughts are a byproduct of your emotions. And if you neutralize the negative emotion, I don't believe they're good or bad emotions. They're all healthy when you use them towards sustainable growth, until it's only when they become pathological that you start to do things that hurt yourself, that all those associated thoughts go with it. So it's kind of like being in the Matrix, the Matrix movie, where you kind of got to kill the machine. And when you kill the one big mother, the motherboard, the big brain, then all the little satellites die, and our nervous system has all those neurons plugged in that match that first big traumatic event. So when you get to the root cause of what caused that initial or inciting incident, that trauma, then all those other neuronets, and I have a whole blog post on neuronets and how to sort of break them. You literally are. You're going to the root. You're pulling out the original incident. Then all the others that are attracted to it that have a similar vibrational frequency, they just dissipate. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of bits of information and thoughts, and then the emotion producers go away. That's the breakthrough, because your body says in this moment it's safe. And then the lifestyle changes that you want to create happen through consistently doing them over and over again to create these new neural pathways. That's why using the imaginal realm of imagining yourself as if it has already been done, that you're already where you want to go in your meditation, in your breath work is so important, because the nervous system doesn't know the difference between what's real and what is imagined. So training consistently over time is what we have to do. So I hope this is making sense and I'm not rambling, but can you see that when you can view the virus of the mind, what we call in mystery school the Watiko in shamanic practice, then we can start to get very curious from the observer, from the witness state of looking at it as a place of growth and evolution, to say, wow, am I viewing this with curiosity, or am I doing this through the lens of what's wrong with me, rather than looking at what's right about this that I'm not getting and learning from it? Because our context that we choose to see the world through that lens of good or bad or right or wrong, it's informing our nervous system all the time of whether the environment that we find ourselves in is safe or threatening. This is why people literally scare themselves sick, and why the ACE score is so important in starting to understand and have some compassion in how your attachment style developed in order for you to cope and keep yourself alive as a child. And most of us have a defensive context, meaning something's wrong with me. It's in the storytelling where we're making meaning of what's wrong with me instead of looking at what's right about me and not getting. And I love that question. So I have to pay attention to the threat all the time. I can't trust people. And the reason why we have that is because there's an original inciting incident or trauma that we've experienced before, normally before the age of 7, when we decided very subconsciously that this is how the world is, that the world is not a safe place, that it's not safe to be you, that you're not enough. And we look at everything going forward from that context, and it produces the emotions. It changes our body chemistry. And that's all the neural pruning that goes on before we reach teenaging stages, where the body originally naturally dumps all the unused neurons in our brain, and why we're seeing so much more anxiety and depression and early onset dementia in the world, because it hasn't been addressed. So just know that these emotions generate thoughts, and those thoughts generate the behavior. That's the model. And so the innovation isn't that behavior and thoughts are important. It's about the ontology. It's about me as the I am, and how I am in the embodiment of interacting with other things. In other words, me and the environment. Everything outside of me is either a threat or it is a gift. And we have to go deeper than your mind, because guess what? The real work is neck down, right? It's not just a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up approach, where we've got to trust our gut first to inform the mind of whether we're safe or not. So I'm going to leave it there for now, but I'm going to come back in and I'm going to speak more about this tomorrow, and the molecules of emotions, and hopefully give you more feedback from the questions that I am trusting that you're going to ask at the bottom of this video, whether you're watching that on Facebook or YouTube or over on my channel. But again, I hope that you found this body-mind vitamin, this dose of body-mind medicine helpful, and get that it's given you some insight into your emotional trauma patterns and what cognitive dissonance actually is. And now I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are. So please post your comments, your questions. And again, if you found this this little video helpful, if you love this trauma informed approach to healing, please remember to subscribe to my channel over on YouTube, or join me over on accessyourtruenature.com. Subscribe for my newsletter, so that you're kept informed, and where you can co-regulate with other members of this beautiful tribe of love warriors, of HSPs, of empaths that are really showing up and doing the work in the world, so that we can together be the change that we want to see in the world. So please feel free to leave me a comment, because you matter to me, and it helps to spread this word, that we can't really be the change if we're not doing our own trauma-informed work, just to help and give of our love and our time and our resources to our beautiful concerns in the oneness and contribution of a sustainable planet and the animals and other people that we care about. So I love hearing from you wherever you find yourself. Have a great day, and I look forward to speaking to you again really, really soon. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.